We are live and ready when you are, Madam Chair.
Oops. Oh, okay. It is. Yeah. So I'd like to call the Seldovia Planning Commission meeting to order. It is 6:01 p.m. And if the clerk could do the roll call.
Commissioner Kroll. Commissioner Ryan.
Here.
Commissioner Forsberg.
Here.
Commissioner Blanchard. Not online. Commissioner Sweet.
Here.
We have 4 members present.
And I'd like to go ahead and have a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
And someone to second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Forsberg and Commissioner Kroll, respectively.
Like me to call the roll, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
On approval of the agenda, Commissioner Kroll.
Yes.
Commissioner Ryan.
Yes.
Commissioner Forsberg.
Yes.
And Commissioner Sweet.
Yes.
We have 4 yeas, Madam Chair.
And the next agenda item is the approval of minutes. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Kroll. Second, please.
I'll second it.
And if the clerk could take the roll.
Commissioner Kroll.
Yes.
Commissioner Ryan.
Yes.
Commissioner Forsberg.
Yes.
And Commissioner Sweet.
Yes.
That would be 4 yeas, Madam Chair.
And then the public comments regarding items not on the agenda.
I'm seeing no public comment. Items not on the agenda.
And we have no public hearing prior notice today.
Correct, and we have no consideration of site plans either.
Okay, so we'll go on to commission business. And the first item is reconsideration of application to rezone waterfront resub number 1, lots 2 through 4, block 13 through 18. Or excuse me, lot 13 and its title 18.97.01B7, best interest of public. Before I get started, does the staff have anything they'd like to say? Or okay. So this is a fairly limited scope for our meeting today. The purpose of this meeting was to provide you with an executive summary based on the recommendation of Commissioner Ryan. The reason for the request for reconsideration was that the city council identified that the information submitted to them had a deficiency. And so in order to correct that deficiency, there has been more information has been provided to identify things that the city council should consider. At this point, we're not asking the city council, we're not giving a recommendation about what they should do. It's just one, to correct the deficiency and to make sure that their decision making is documented so that if there's an appeal, all of the information that is needed is in place, and that deficiency of information is not something that would be part of the issue, the things that they would have to decide or correct. Do any of the commissioners have any initial comment before I get started? Okay, so the city council identified the reason they made their initial decision was based on there being a deficiency. And so what we have done is gone through criteria number 7 in the amendment process to make sure that everything, all of the information that they need to have on that topic is included in the application. So at the crux of the matter, there's public interest that has been expressed at the time that the 2014 comprehensive plan was developed and approved. And then there's the public interest that's been identified during the public hearing processes recently. And the main issue appears to be that there's a public interest for retaining the requirement for a commercial business to be on those lots versus in the comprehensive plan, there is the community at that time identified a desire for streamlining the zoning districts, and the lots would be in those particular would be considered as part of what was called the SLU district, and it appears to be consistent with the waterfront commercial residential district. On the argument for denying zoning, additionally to the retaining of the commercial requirement, there's also, at least with the public hearing that we had, there was a lack of consensus on the issue. And we had a lack of consensus in our subcommittee. So at any rate, that is part of the issue. And then another aspect would be that to have community to provide input into the update of the 2014 comprehensive plan, so that there is alignment between the Seldovia comprehensive plan and the Seldovia zoning code and zoning map, because those things they're not in alignment right now. So we have different perspectives and our documents are not consistent with each other. In terms of approving rezoning, in addition to being aligned with the comprehensive plan, the current comprehensive plan, there's a desire to preserve the current appearance and character of the neighborhood consistent with the waterfront commercial residential district, and then to support property rights to allow landowners flexibility in the current economic conditions. So those are the two sides of the argument. So we're providing that information to the city council. In terms of the effective development, in terms of the physical development, the buildings are already in place, so there's no change in terms of the development. The cumulative effect of similar development on property within and in the vicinity of the area subject to the amendment. So again, this is the change from business to waterfront commercial. There wouldn't be any physical change, and there is no natural environment, transportation, public service, or land use. There's no physical impact in terms of the reclassification. And again, this isn't recommending one or the other. It's just saying if we're looking at the criteria in that particular item, we're just providing information and documentation there. And basically going from commercial to waterfront, there's no longer a requirement for a business. However, a landowner can have a business. It just gives the landowner flexibility. And if you're looking at the comparing the code and the land use, it does give more flexibility to the going from commercial to waterfront commercial residential. It gives more flexibility to the landowner. So I guess from a lessons learned standpoint, we need to when comprehensive plans are being done, we should make sure that that is in fact what the community wants. And to the extent that a comprehensive plan is done involving the community, that does express the will of the people. But then if there is a desire to do something, then it needs to be put into a plan and then actually executed. What we have is we have a statement in the comprehensive plan, but there was no execution plan going from what was stated in the comprehensive plan to what the community identified as wanting to be done at the time. The other thing that would be helpful, and I think we're starting to have that, where there's linkage between the comprehensive plan and other strategic plans. So we, in our discussions here, have had conversations linking the capital improvement plan with the comprehensive plan. And so one, that is, we're reinforcing what we're doing. And we're also, as a small community, if we're using the same resources, we want to make sure that we're actually not overloading ourselves with things to do, but that we're actually doing things that are coordinated. And then there appeared to be some instances where the comprehensive plan, it wasn't known that it actually existed. So as things are transitioning, so from administration to administration or staff to a new staff, some of that information doesn't get communicated. So part of the lessons learned is just to make sure that of the things that are, especially the strategic documents that we have in our community, that those things are actually identified and making sure that they're being updated and integrated into the day-to-day operations of the city. So this is what we're not. So what I would ask is, Allison, you made the recommendation, and I'm just would like to get your feedback on it. Does this kind of meet what you were wanting to get out of providing this executive summary and making sure that we were providing the city council the appropriate information?
Yeah, this is Allison. It was very thorough. I think, yeah, it shows a balanced portrayal of public benefits on either side of the issue.
Thank you. I don't know, does the staff have any input? No.
Not at this time. Do
Okay.
you want to do public comment prior to the discussion?
Yes, please. And any public comment?
Yes, I have a few.
Okay. Hold on while we're gonna get you a microphone here. And then,
I think that when this comprehensive plan was made, I've talked to several of the people on that commission, and I don't think that there was any intent to change these waterfront properties into a different district. And I might say that I think that what is often referred to on page 33 of the comprehensive plan, there's two copies of it in this packet here. On that same page, well, let me say, I think that it was painted with a pretty broad brush. That on that same page, there's an inset that clearly shows those properties as a part of the commercial waterfront. And so I think that in the long term of Seldovia, that it would behoove the present Seldovia to keep in place the commercial responsibility that's attached to these three properties. They address the harbor. They're clearly not similar to many of the older buildings that are just very adjacent to that. And part of those properties, which I think is very important, is that those properties that include from what is their uplands property, 150 feet out into the harbor, where they can put docks. I think this was at the original urban renewal, that it was thought that these properties could have docks in front of them to service their businesses. But there's no restriction on the docks, and if it were to go to private residences, that those docks could be used for, you know, their own pleasure, I guess. I don't know, this is my feeling that I would like to see these properties remain commercial. Perhaps the city might be a little bit lenient on some of the interpretations of what a business is. They already are. That in particular, the Leslie Martin property, Walt has gone to great effort to construct a couple of rental units in the lower part of his building. And if he did that and it was approved, then he could satisfy the commercial part. But I guess I'm thinking long term, but if you would look at this, you know, the page 33 thing, I think you might have a
So
different.
So just as a point of information for you, if you're talking about the little drawing that's right below the where it's in the land use section, is that what you're referring to? The little inset right there? That's
Yes.
what you're talking about. What that is that actually came from the 1980 comprehensive plan. So that's what that's from. it's not reflected. That's because I did not know what that was, and I did some research, and that's where I was and the staff did some research, and we were able to locate that. So that actual inset is from 1980. It's not from 2014. And we're like, from the standpoint of the commission today, we're not advocating one way or the other. We've provided our input, and we're not advocating one way or the other. What we're trying to do right now is that there was not information provided to the city council that they should have had, and we're fixing that so that they have it. And we're asking them to reconsider it just to make sure that everything is considered in their discussion.
Okay,
So that's what our purpose is. We're not, it's up to them to decide, and they have decided. The problem is that because there was a deficiency, in order for the decision to be fully, to be done properly, then we should provide all the information needed for them to make their decision. So we're just asking them to review their decision to make sure, and it may not change from what they already decided, but it's just to make sure that everything is correct. And one of the applicants wanted to provide additional information, so they did that. And so that's just going to be going to the city council for them to reconsider. And then we're asking them to document their decision so that if there are other things that happen in the future, that we're using the same criteria to decide. So that's one piece of it. And then it seems that because there isn't consensus in the community, then we should fix if the decision is such where if they continue their decision, continue to uphold their decision, then we should fix the comprehensive plan so that it's in alignment with what we think is in the best interest of the community. And I think we'll be having a further conversation about what that might look like, how we might go about doing that so that we actually get the feedback from the community and we go forward. But right now, this is more of a correction. If that makes sense to you.
okay. The only comment that I have on that, Randy, is that there are 7 requirements that they had to address, and the first 6 were addressed. Some of them a little squeaky, I thought, but the 7th one is how does it serve the public interest? And I think that's where the city council drew the line, that they couldn't see that it served the public interest, and to me that hasn't been shown yet.
And I think that what they did is they told us they made a decision because there was a deficiency, meaning they didn't have all the information they needed. So what we're trying to do is just say, here's the information, here's the difference in public interest, the different sides of the equation, and then it's up to them to decide now that they have that corrected. And so that's where we're at this moment. So what we'll do is if the commission votes to do this, then we will send that over to the city council for them to reconsider, and they can look at the information about public interest and then determine what they think about that, and then move forward. And then what this does is that if there's an appeal, then the fact that there was a deficiency doesn't end up being an issue in the appeal process. It's just then it can be appealed on the merits as opposed to something being deficient. So that's why we're trying to get this. We just want to do this properly so that everything can be done in a way that's fair and and consistent with what we're required to do in terms of the criteria.
All right, and thank you, and I'm really appreciate all the effort that you have put into this. It's incredible. Anyway, that's like I said, my piece. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much and is there anybody else that would like to have public comment?
I believe Madam Chair, Crystal's hand was up, but it's Crystal, did you have a comment? Okay, go ahead if you could state
Yes.
your name if you have a comment.
Crystal Collier. I thank you for the explanation. I was trying to figure out, did the city council request this information and they felt that their decision was made with a deficiency? I'm sorry, I got confused because of the way you stated it first and then second. If I may ask that question.
Through the chair, I can answer that question. So the decision was made by the Seldovia City Council, and then it came back to the Planning Commission so that the application could be denied. And then during that process and speaking with the chair and speaking with legal, it was discussed that because of the deficiency in information that could be brought back as additional information to the council before the application was closed and fully denied. So this is the last potential step at this point is to address that deficiency, bring it back to the council. They'll have additional information and then can further their decision or make a decision based on that. Then that would go back to the to the commission as a resolution based on their decision of whether the application was denied or not, in order to start the appeal process for the applicant if it's denied, or to complete the rezone if it's not. Hopefully that made sense.
Thank you so much.
Is there anybody else that wishes to make public comment?
It looks like Jerry had his hand up as well.
Yeah, can
Jerry,
you
go
hear me?
ahead if you could state your name.
Yeah, Jerry Stranick. 182 Bay Street. Yeah, so I have a couple questions. In the comprehensive plan that was adopted, they recognized an area called the Slough District, is what they called it. And the road that came from the airport went down and went into the harbor right there. Everything on the other side of that road towards what we call downtown now was in the commercial district. Everything on the other side was in the Slough District. And that's where these lots are, as well as the ones across the street. In fact, where the pavilion is, that was in residential district. So that, and I went back with to Mike and Giles, and we sat down and went through the old maps of pre and post earthquake, pre and post of the harbor riprap that's put out there for the creating the harbor. And there was no commercial on this, that side is where the old boardwalk is now. And it was, if there was anything, it was residential commercial. It was somebody that did something out of their home or something like that. So all the other stuff was actually even beyond where our commercial district is now into the industrial district. That's where all of it was there. And so that argument then, I think, carried into the formation of how they created that plan at that time. Well, now they feel you want to do something different, but I just don't, the bottom line is you can have a business in either one, and the business will prevail if it's economically feasible, it'll prevail. because everybody will want to have it. When you get into successful business areas, even like down on the Homer Spit or any place, you know, you have there, that's very valuable commercial property. Nobody's living on the bottom floors of any of those places there, you know. So, but we just don't have that vitality of for businesses that can last more than 4 months, you know. So it's kind of a conundrum in a way, but and either way, I'm glad that Randy has gone through this effort to sort of clean everything up because a lot of this was based on emotion rather than fact. So anyway, it is what it is. Whatever the council decides, it's they're in charge, and I think if they're legally able to supersede the plan, then that's so be it. Okay, so that's all I had to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Jerry. Is there anybody else that would like to make a public comment? So so at this point, we'll go ahead and close public comment. And then I guess from this, just I have a process check here. So
This would be a commission discussion time.
okay, so is there any comments from the commissioners on this issue or any of the information provided by the public? So we'll go ahead to, so I guess that we'll close out the commission discussion and move on to action disposition. So at this, just doing a check-in with the staff in terms of providing the executive summary and packet to the council. So we should, if you could give me the advice on how to proceed for us to execute that.
Yes, we'd probably do it through a motion by the commission to send the executive summary and the memo provided, unless it wants to be amended, to the city council for reconsideration.
Okay, so I'd like to ask for a motion to send the executive summary and the packet for reconsideration to the city council.
I'll make a motion to do that.
And could I have a second?
It's the same thing.
So Commissioner Forsberg made the motion and Commissioner Kroll made the second. And if the clerk could take the roll.
Commissioner Kroll,
Yes.
I'll do that. Okay. Commissioner Kroll
Yes.
and Commissioner Ryan,
Yes.
Commissioner Forsberg
Yes.
and Commissioner Sweet.
Yes.
So that'd be 4 yes with 1 absent.
So the motion carries.
Yeah, so motion carries. So this will likely come before the council at their January 27th meeting.
Thank you. Thank you to the public and thank you to the commission for working on this issue. The next item is commercial business district review and action on recommendations. And I'll turn that over to the staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So where we last left off at our last meeting was to produce a draft ordinance. And you can find the beginning of that on page 100 of the packet. And I did include prior to that, starting on page 92, just the PowerPoint that has all of the issues that we were working on from the subcommittee. So there have been a couple of edits, so you'll see this has a version number 3 on the bottom of this draft ordinance. And after the last meeting, I was hoping to get feedback on the definitions that were included for bed and breakfast and business, and the purpose statement for the district. And then we had 2 worksheets that we were going to focus on as well to kind of keep going through the ordinance. Let me get some page numbers for those. Okay. The worksheet's on page 123 and describing the impacts for sales, service, and manufacturing business. And I believe that discussion was based on what kind of further businesses should we allow based on their impacts within the commercial or the central, what will be the central business district. There's a worksheet on penalties. And then one on mobile food truck and businesses. So those were the ones that we're hoping to get feedback on after, as well as the draft ordinance itself and the definitions within it.
So currently starting on page 100, this is updated, the document is updated with the feedback that has been given in the commission discussions. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
So when the commissioners, their review would be just if they see anything that's out of order, but this would be reflective of what has been decided along the way.
Correct.
Okay.
And if it's missing something, let me know. But I can run through the ordinance if that would be preferable. If that's the will of the commission.
Would certainly.
Okay. So the ordinance is going to be in 3 sections. The first is going to amend the definition section. So starting on page 100. The first amendment would be on 102, which would add in the definition for bed and breakfast. And that would be an owner occupied and operated single family residential dwelling where lodging with or without a meal is provided for compensation on a short-term basis. And what I did add in was this term does not include boarding houses and separate apartments, which are leased on a month-to-month basis to be sure that those were there. And then we added in with or without a meal to focus that definition on owner occupied. In number 14, we had business definition, which was added, which means an activity involving wholesale or retail sales or the rental of any article, substance, or commodity, including but not limited to building materials, vehicles, and the provision of all commercial services, including financial institutions and personal services. And under that, you'll start to see numbers crossed out and you'll have an A, B, C, all the way through G. Those are all the definitions that have been consolidated under the business definition. You'll see below that the cabin rentals definition has been removed. Okay. Going forward through there, you'll see that commercial recreation entertainment uses have been removed, but they are under the business. They're one of the A through G's under the business definition now. So they'll be taken out of those lines, but they'll be consolidated under the business definition. The home occupation on page 105, you'll see that definition has been shortened and clarified, and it took out the noise, odors, effluent, smoke, dust, and vibrations definition of what that is, because that was already in there. And then you go through to page 107,
The lodge definition has been taken out, and that will be part of short-term accommodations. A definition for occupancy has been added from Title 13. And office has been removed, which is also consolidated under the business. As well as on page 110, you'll see professional office is taken out, and that has been consolidated under business as well. And retail business has also been taken out, as will be consolidated under the business definition. And then you'll see further down on page 111, we have under the setback definition, we've added in that eaves and overhangs shall not exceed 24 inches into the setback. And that was from a prior conversation, just trying to define how much overhang would be allowed into the setbacks. And the best place to do it might be in the definition for it. And then at the bottom of that page is a definition for short-term accommodation. So that would be good to get feedback on that. What we did for this one is any type of lodging or housing that is rented or made available for overnight sleeping for a temporary period not to exceed 30 days. And then we added in some qualifiers. So for short-term accommodations with 5 or more rooms or dwelling units, see hotel or motel. For owner-occupied short-term accommodations, see bed and breakfast. And for shared room, short-term accommodations, see hostel, because those definitions are still in there, and we wanted to make sure those were clarified beyond the short-term accommodation, if they will have different permitted uses. And then moving on to page 114, you'll see the commercial business is changed to central business. And below that, you'll see the purpose statement is reworded. And that was in the draft last time to reflect what Nicola had provided for us in slightly changed language. So I did want to get some feedback specifically on whether or not the commission felt like that was really capturing what we wanted the purpose statement to be. And the rest of these are a little bit of changing commercial to essential business district. And then you'll see on 115, the land use table is completely, it will be repealed and reenacted. So the repealed portion I left in there for now, so you can see what it is like now, but that all has strike through it. And that goes through to page 119, on which you'll see the repealed and reenacted version starting here. And so that has the added administrative permit and not applicable to the key. And it has all of the land uses alphabetized with the headings taken out. And so that ordinance will end on page 122 at the end of that land use table at this moment in time for now. So that's where we stand right now. And there are these worksheets if the commission wants to continue on to those, or if there's any feedback on the ordinance as it stands right now.
Does anyone have any, from the commission have any feedback
Or questions?
or question? Yeah.
This is Commissioner Ryan here. Good work. It's amazing. Quite a bit of work to get all that done. When I was looking at that final page with all the C's and P's and N's and the different zoning categories, it seemed like something to break those up instead of just being all black and white would be really nice. But that's more, it's not really the content, it's the graphic. It was hard to like look at it. That's all my comment.
So maybe just graying out every other line to make it flow with that.
Yeah, something.
I can work on.
Okay.
So in this case, we will be changing things in Title 18.20 and 1852. So we've got the definitions and the central business district and the land use table. So we have three sections of the code that we're actually changing.
Yeah, so it'd be 3 sections of Title 18.
So I guess it, and is there any comment from the public in terms of the current changes in the zoning codes? So then I guess we can go onto the worksheets. I believe that the definitions that are contained in the low impact sales, service, and manufacturing recommendations, but some of those items are not permitted in the central business district, but they would be permitted in other districts. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, so this is one of those things where we would need to be because there are certain things that would be helpful for the commercial business district, but we don't want to do anything that would negatively impact other districts. And they may have other. So from the standpoint of consolidating these things into low impact sales, service, and manufacturing. If we consolidate them into one definition, then there are some that are not permitted in the central business district. So it may, even though it might be helpful to consolidate them, it may not be, I guess, in the overall scheme of things, it may not be helpful because because of the different types of use in different districts.
If my memory jogs me on this one from the subcommittee, it was that maybe a small scale version of equipment repairs might be in order in the business district, whereas you wouldn't want a huge
Okay.
industrial operation. Just
So
how to more clearly define that.
so it's the splitting out. So for those things that would be, so in these definitions, would it be pulling out? Well, I guess because light industrial could apply to other areas. So I guess you'd want to just have a definition that identified the light industrial, and then I guess it would be a larger operation type of I guess it would be it would be more of an industrial sales. I guess it would be between light and industrial. Would that be a good way of looking at those two things?
Yeah, that would be a good way of looking at it. I'm just trying to get a clear picture on where to draw that line or how to incorporate that into the definition. Do you have any thoughts, maybe?
Because this, I suppose, light industrial would be those things that would not make noise or odors or any of those kinds of things. It would be something that would not adversely impact the sort of retail types of activities, retail and housing activities that are in the commercial business district. Is that kind of where we're heading? Is we just want it to be quiet and nice and pleasant. People can walk around, and it's so that would be the reason for doing it, for splitting it out, so that if something's noisy or creates any kind of odors or other unpleasantries, that would be removed in an industrial area.
Yeah, and at the last meeting, Chair Sweet, I believe you had mentioned possibly making the car stuff a conditional use within that district, so that could be evaluated. I don't know if that's a direction that the commission wants to go, to add more conditional uses. That's an option as well.
I would, sorry, I guess I'll ask for the public comment, and then, I guess that I think how to enforcement is probably a part of that key to whatever we do, so we don't create a quagmire for anybody.
Sorry for making you jump the gun. Cola Collier. One of the examples that we had come up with in the subcommittee that we found there might be an issue was under the marine equipment sales, service, repair, construction, and storage. So this is just an example of what you're referring to, but it is currently permitted in the commercial business district. And it says that you can do maintenance you can do vessel repair, maintenance, servicing, repair, painting, and it didn't say the size of the vessel. And I know that in Seldovia's history, they wanted the commercial business district to be marine focused, and that's great. But do we want a 150-foot tender if somebody buys up 3 lots in town on the commercial business district to be pulled out and have them doing boat work on a large boat? And that's not defined currently in here. So looking at that scale was what we were hoping you guys could address. And we didn't know how to define that in the subcommittee.
Go ahead, to the recognizing the city manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just a thought that came to me, take it or leave it, but in considering the 2 types of kind of industry we're addressing and doing just a quick Google search, one way it looks like that could be addressed is by industrial manufacturing versus including a definition of small business manufacturing and addressing, that it's for instance, it says a type of business that produces goods in smaller quantities than large scale factories, characterized by a smaller number of employees, limited automation, a flexible production schedule. We could also include and as a small scale manufacturers often use hand tools or simple machinery to make their products. I imagine there'd be a place to say, not noxious or light or whatever that definition is, that no effluent smells and being produced from it, and then just having it as its own category of small business manufacturing is allowed in this district, or whatever districts it's allowed in, and then I'd have to go back and look at what the bigger industrial type definitions are, and potentially we could, if I look up that, update those just to make sure they include the language industrial in them, or even including a language of what industrial. I would be kind of reinventing the wheel a little bit, but I think we could synthesize these definitions into either a small business, manufacturing, or industrial. And maybe the ones that are small business are just like it is under business. They're listed. This is a small business. And then under industrial, these are industrial, and this is why. Sorry, I'm really,
Yeah, so
I'm spitballing here,
Okay.
so.
it sounds like, if you could, I guess if the staff could kind of take in what we've been discussing and just, provide a recommendation, that would probably be the most helpful. Yeah, because we want it to be easily understood and also, easily enforced. I think the conditional use is also something, it may be that whatever operation there might be, it could be conditional in the commercial business district, just so that there's a decision point about whether it fits into the commercial business district. So but that's just a thought, not sure if that's proper or not, but so we'll go on to the next one, which is penalties, and I guess one of the I'm sorry, I'm trying to just remember our conversations about this, but it seemed like that there was some of the conversation that we had was by cleaning up some of the language in the code, that we were hoping that there wouldn't, that would reduce the penalties as well, just to make it easier to follow and people are understanding what they need to do. And so I didn't know if there was any recommendation from the staff on this particular topic.
Through the chair, this is fairly standard with a lot of the rest of our code. And I think administratively, a bigger issue is having the code be usable in order to enforce requirements of the code, which I'm hoping that this update will do that, and that it'll be user friendly and everybody, just a lot more understandable. So that if there is an issue, we can move forward with that. And perhaps a slower approach where we first implement the code and then look at how it's working and what needs to be done, and then evaluate penalties might be beneficial, unless somebody has specific ideas they want to address at this moment.
And then I guess in terms of the specific recommendation that this subcommittee provided, was, consider a 30-day warning and a 2-year time frame to establish and construct business similar to the current business building permit timeline. So I didn't know if that there was any public comment on that in terms of what was.
The one more thing I would add on to that is that could also be implemented through policy once this is complete.
Okay, once the code is up, I see. So once the code is updated, then.
Yeah, and actually with the planning commission working through updating the business application to be more of a site plan application, that might be a great way to include that piece in there, along with the staff checklist, also having in there a policy of the timelines and when to review and when to do things. So it's a little bigger piece of the pie than just implementing it in code. I think it'd be helpful to lay out those steps in policy along with the building permit.
So on this one, we should just say we're gonna basically table this until until the implementation of the new code, and then we can revisit it. But right now, it's just being able to update it, get it into place, and then whatever, if there are policies or other things that need to be done or checklists. And then I think we had also talked about having a checklist for businesses about what kinds of things they need to have, so that is also part of what helping people to succeed, as opposed to dinging them on further down the line. So we'll just identify that as we're gonna table that, and then we're gonna work on the positive end to enable people to succeed.
And incentivize. Because I think that was a big part of the conversation, was how to incentivize and encourage the carrot versus the stick.
Yeah. And helping people to understand what they actually need to do. So, and then I'd like to recognize that member of the public.
Thank you. Ecola again. While we're close by here at the bottom of 123, it does talk about the mini storage facility and is not permitted in the commercial business district. I would like to propose that it be considered as a conditional or a secondary. I know we might not want storage units on Main Street or in our commercial business district. However, there are some current properties. I'll use mine as an example. I don't live at my rental property. There is a garage behind that I could in the future turn into a storage option for people in the community. And I have had members of the public reach out to me and ask if that was something that I'd be willing to rent to them. And under the current code, that's not something that I would be allowed to do. So I would ask you guys to consider that.
Did the city clerk have any feedback?
So under the current definition for a mini storage facility, it says 3 or more areas or rooms available for lease. So I guess I'm just wondering if, I know there was some really trying to pull back to the discussion on the storage, because there is a different land use one for storage in here, I believe. Yeah, so storage yard or storage facility and mini storage, so. Storage facility. Also not permitted. That's also not permitted, right?
Again, if I may, one of the items that came up in the subcommittee was how nice it would be if locals had a place to store their kayaks and they had easy access to them so they could take them out on the slough. And if I rented out individual spaces for those kayaks, then I would be exceeding those storage spaces. So that would be an example. On the other hand, I don't necessarily want to see a garage door 3-5 unit wide storage facility on Main Street, but I think that there are applications where it might work into what we currently have and might be beneficial to the community.
Does anybody from the commission have any input on this? I guess what perhaps as the staff is looking at this low impact area, that might be something to look at, and maybe there are some conventions that are used that could be helpful for our community. So we're not having massive storage units, but if there are things that would, I guess, from what I'm hearing is like, if you're trying to encourage businesses or individuals to enjoy Seldovia and have have a way to access their sports equipment, that might be something that would be beneficial to the community and to individuals. So if there's a way to do that without turning it into an industrial operation, I think, but it seems like perhaps there's with a mini storage and that being considered low impact, then that might fit into this. And if you could give us your best advice on what that might look like, then that just gives us more flexibility.
Commissioner Ryan, I think having it as a conditional use would help solve that problem. I would advocate for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan.
There any other comments on that one?
Are there any other comments on the mini storage meeting?
I would just suggest conditional use does have a application process, which maybe somebody who wants to rent out a portion of their structure would be willing to do. And that could be fitting. But if you are okay with it, I would like the opportunity to workshop that definition a little bit too, as well, to maybe if we can do a similar model for a small business storage versus industrial storage. Maybe industrial is not the right word, but small versus large
Scale.
large scale. And then having it be incidental or secondary instead of conditional use. And I'm not promising that I can accomplish that, but I feel like we could work in that direction and see if that's applicable.
I think it would be good to get something where you have some time to think about it and provide us with what would fit in. Again, it's like, so it fits into what we want overall, and then also help support businesses in being able to provide different aspects of service, just because it's good for the business and good for the community. And then, so at this point, I'll close the discussion on the mini storage, and the last item we have is the mobile food truck, mobile business. And does the staff have any input into this particular item, or for the public in terms of this particular item?
So I didn't see it in here, but previously when we had this discussion on the commission level, and I believe it may have been in the first initial draft ordinance that spurred the subcommittee, there was a section on mobile food trucks. So sorry, I'm a little remiss to say it might be hard to have this discussion without some examples. Would it be helpful if we brought back, and I know this is stretching out, but if you guys would like to see some examples of mobile food truck definitions, or a mobile business section to include in Title 18? Unless, Clerk Diamond, do you know if there's any examples provided?
I don't think we have any examples provided in this packet or ordinance. Is the original intent of this from the original ordinance was to provide a definition and land use for a mobile food truck within the commercial business district or within the city itself? Because our code now only applies to vending on city property. Was that the intent? Do you remember?
Yes, it was to address the more of the mobile food truck, motorized type vending.
And on any property, not just city vending locations, correct? Or
I believe it was city specific, but I would have to
City-specific.
double check. Yeah.
And currently I think, I think I made an error in this, on the worksheet. I think it should be item 112 in the, as far as vending. It's what it's referring to, but this, in terms of having its own section in Title 18, it was referring to a definition, not, or was it referring to a definition in land use? On the,
Oh, on land use table.
yeah, I'm not sure if it's on the land use table, so I'm not sure if that's part of, okay, so part of this was, so whether, so if there are corrections or additions or deletions, but if, are there things that need to be updated on the definition or not? And then we should, I think that, and then it was the intent to put it into the land use table itself.
Yeah, we would look at that, and we can provide examples because I have
Okay.
seen it, where it's more of an in-depth conversation because there are, pieces, more working pieces to it since it deals with, conducting a business specifically on public property. So with that, it may be beneficial to have a larger section that relates to it, similar to how we have a larger section for mobile home parks. So
Okay,
I can bring back some examples.
all right, and then I'd like to recognize the public.
Thank you, Ecola Collier. I think we had mentioned in our subcommittee how someone has an unoccupied lot, and if they wanted to bring in a mobile thing, it wasn't currently permitted as an accessory structure, as a mobile home, there wasn't anything in the land use table that fit letting them have a mobile business on their property.
So
maybe
some
maybe
kind
both.
of an enabling code that would identify this as a category and to provide the way that the requirements that would need to be met in order to do that. Commissioner Forsberg.
So right now, if you had one of those trucks, you'd have to have a business permit, right? Or a business license from the city to have a taco truck.
Yes. Yep. Any kind of sales or services.
Right.
Well, most kinds of sales or services. There are a few exceptions, under the Kenai Peninsula Borough, sales tax registration form, but pretty much any sales or services, is required to have a business license and sales tax registration form and state of Alaska business license. So there are requirements for it. So I think maybe we're addressing it two different things, is one where and how it can happen on city property, and two, for people who are doing it on private property, and that'll be a little bit smaller, and we can bring back some of those examples.
Okay.
I have one more comment on that.
Go ahead.
One option might be including a mobile business under the business category, like all of those others were, if it's on private property.
That was just what I was gonna say.
So I think what we'll do then is, and we'll conclude the discussion of the commercial business district code update. And we have the things that we've identified for next time. So it would seem like we should be able to wrap up the code update by next time, because we just have these few things to take care of. Does that sound? I know we'll probably have to have cake and ice cream or something. So does that sound like a reasonable thing to, sort of work toward?
Madam Chair, if I may, I've been furiously taking notes with the last few questions. So I think as long as we're diligent, we can bring back all the changes discussed and some ideas to look at. I would say maybe it'll take one more meeting once we have your guys' final input, but hopefully this next meeting will be the rest of the feedback that we need, and then a very clean copy could come back one more time for review. If everything goes well.
Are you gonna have enough paper?
Try not to kill any more trees than necessary.
I think the rezoning petition in here, the amount of documentation with it has gotten very large.
Yeah.
That is the
It did.
majority of the packet. And I will say there are two things that I will bring back in the different draft and that I realize are not included in here. And one was the tying the business definition back to the requirements in the Title 5. And then looking through the two previous ordinances that have amended the commercial business district, changed the name, and created the land use table, there was prior to that in there a reference to the business license requirements. And so I will bring it. And I think that was taken out when the land use table was put in to try to streamline it, but maybe that didn't work like it was supposed to. And so I'll bring back the language of the example in the next ordinance to see if that's still relevant.
Okay.
And in addition to that, the part of the commercial business district that said that the principal use was supposed to be commercial was taken out of the district purpose definition. And I think we had talked about maybe putting something like that or a mixed use back in so that it was clear in the purpose statement. That also was taken out when the land use table was put in, with the idea that it would be straightforward within the land use table. I think now it would be a good idea to probably put that back in so that remains within the code.
Okay.
So I'll make those two additional changes as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you to the, and then is there anybody else wanting to make any comments?
Allison, did you have a comment? I know your hand is up, but I'm not sure if that's from previous time.
No. So I lowered my hand. Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, and then the next item is the Seldovia Comprehensive Plan Update Consideration. And I'll turn that over to the staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I almost hate to ask after you guys are at the tail end of a very long process. However, part of that process brought up a potential need to review, and we've done it recently twice, but and also in part of that review, that there could be some updates that are warranted in the 2014 comprehensive plan. So if you look at page 134 of your packet, you'll see a memo that just has the consideration laid out. An update to the 2014 plan may be applicable due to the age of the plan, recent zoning considerations, recent examination and review of the plan, and the interest of the City Council, Planning Commission, and City Administration. This is something that the council is considering at the next meeting on Monday, January 13th, as a priority is to update the 2014 comprehensive plan. Previously, it was included and it's still included in the CIP because this can be a very large, expensive endeavor to update a plan. It's mentioned in that CIP project with the intent to make sure that it's aligned with our land use or with our zoning code, which, as we know right now, it's not. I would like to note and state in here that the request is that the Seldovia Planning Commission would help take on this endeavor in-house. This is a responsibility of the Planning Commission according to the Alaska Planning Commission Handbook. And is a really important tool that the city have in place. There's potential support from the Alaska Municipal League to help with this process. In fact, I'll be meeting with them tomorrow. Myself and Chair Sweet provided a initial scope of what potential assistance they could provide that would be beneficial. And we'll hear back from them and see what they would be willing to assist with. Certainly, it seems like they're interested in using us kind of as a guinea pig to work through how they can broaden this service to other communities. So I would also note that if this is something that the Planning Commission does want to take on, that an update of the plan should be a highly publicized process. As we see, there's different opinions and considerations from the public, and they can be controversial or counterindicating. So it's a big task, but to have lots of the opportunity for the public to provide input will help hopefully shape and guide that plan so that it really is a community plan. The way I was thinking about it when I was talking with Chair Sweet, is kind of the beauty of it, and it is required by statute that we have it and that all communities have it, is that when you look at our organizational structure, for instance, in the budget for the city, it's citizens on top, right? It's citizens, it's council, then it goes city manager and city attorney, and then city employees. And this plan, I think, if done correctly, an update done right with that public input and support, should help also guide that structure. And it's the citizen feedback of what the city is doing that's trickling down to the council, trickling to the city manager, and then throughout the city employees. And it does state in that Planning Commission handbook, it is a blueprint for guiding development in a community, includes information on population dynamics and demographics, physical conditions, land use. A lot of that stuff hasn't changed, but the plan reflects the vision and direction of residents. The comprehensive plan's visions, goals, objectives, policies, and implementation strategies provide a framework for decision-making regarding land use, transportation, housing, public facilities, and economic development. I've been through it a few times recently. Public facilities are included, but maybe they could be called out a little more. There's just a few things compared to where the community was when the plan was implemented to where the community is now. If you think about the pandemic, you think about climate change, that's not really addressed in the plan. So there are maybe some additions that could be added in, but really just streamlining the existing plan, checking with the public that those goals are still applicable. If there are additional goals that need to be included, and then maybe formatting that action process so it's a little bit cleaner and more of a guideline on, okay, this is your plan, these are your goals, now here's the actions that you're going to complete. And this is a lot of information, so I apologize. I didn't mean to go into this in depth with the conversation, but we've been talking a lot about it lately. So it's definitely on our minds. You'll see an example of when to update or rewrite the comprehensive plan. This is out of Alaska statute. It states that the assembly shall, after receiving the recommendations of the planning commission, periodically undertake an overall review of the comprehensive plan and update the plan as necessary. And then to determine if a plan should be updated or considered, there's criteria given, and that's the adoption date of the comprehensive plan. Examine the plan every 2 to 5 years. So our plan is 11 years old now. To determine if the data and other parts of the plan are still relevant. Changes in internal policies and conditions, changes in external conditions, frequent amendments to the comprehensive plan and zoning ordinances, local policy, and usefulness. If the plan is out of date, is irrelevant, or is not being used, it should be updated. So the Planning Commission did do a review of the comprehensive plan in 2021, and that was just of the Planning Commission goals. And I believe I included the results of that in this packet. Towards the back here, yep, you'll see on page 158 and 159 was a resolution requesting that the Seldovia Planning Commission review and provide an analysis regarding the comprehensive plan. And then following that on page 160 through the end of the packet are those comprehensive plan ratings. And then currently the Seldovia Planning Commission is wrapping up a review of the implementation recommendations. So it was the goals first, and then the implementation recommendations relate back to the goals. As an exercise, I don't know if this is helpful or not. It might be too convoluted, but that very last page, I saw examples of other communities where they had a comprehensive plan, and then the plan was more of a policy, and then under that plan they had other, like, a master airport plan, master stormwater management plan, transportation plan, housing, just different plans that led into the comprehensive plan itself. And so taking that same idea, I tried to do a little bubble exercise and show you have the 2014 comprehensive plan in the middle. You have your 5 elements, which are economy, transportation, land use, environment, and community and human resources. They each have goals. So I believe I did lay it out here, how many goals there are. There are 5 elements, 24 goals, and 42 recommendations. So then when I tried to lay out the recommendations to go back into the goals, there was just no way to accomplish it. It's a lot of data. So it is, I'm really thankful for the work that the Planning Commission has done to complete the review, first on the goals and then now on the recommendations. If this is something that the Seldovia Planning Commission wants to undertake, the next steps potentially are listed on page 136 in that memo, and that would be the consideration this evening of whether you guys are going to take this on, knowing this will probably be an entire year-long process. And then kind of laying out that year, February 5th, is a discussion about the timeline and communication plan for updating the plan. So we'll just finalize these steps a little bit more, talk about AML's involvement, and finalize the 2014 comprehensive plan report card. And that's that implementation audit that you guys are working on right now. And then February, post out a survey with that report card asking for community input on if the goals for each element are still applicable and if there are things missing. April 2nd, discuss the results of the survey at the Planning Commission meeting in April. And this is all rough draft, but it's just hopefully to guide us so it's not super daunting. In April, hold a public meeting with large printed materials regarding each element and their goals as we've received input back from the public. And then additionally, asking for more feedback on those goals and elements and an order of priority, as well as actions for the implementation of those goals. May through July, I would recommend we host a virtual meeting on the website and let people go onto that website and provide feedback. August, conduct a community meeting with the findings from the public and virtual meeting, draft the comp plan update in September and October. October-November timeframe, allow a 60-day public comment period, and then December adopt a final draft. So really, if you see the time frame is so long because it's a lot of opportunity for input. And I'm open and hoping for suggestions and feedback from the Planning Commission on that. I also included Chapter 5 from the Alaska Planning Commission Handbook regarding the comprehensive plan as a reference, and that's on page 137 through 145. And then the last thing, I know this is a lot of information, so we can go back to anything you want, but the last thing I wanted to point out is there is a second memo on page 146 that's starting to compile the feedback we received from the commissioners regarding the comprehensive plan implementation recommendations. We received back the review from all commissioners except for one, and then one staff member, and we're hoping to get another staff member's input. If you look, and I just want to, I'm showing the plan elements again as well in this memo. And like I said, pointing out the 5 elements, 24 goals, 42 recommendations. Of the 42 recommendations, there are 15 action, 10 policy, 11 synergy, and 6 contingencies. Each element goal consists of multiple recommendation and goals. For instance, 1, 2, and 4 of community and human resources consists of all the recommendations. So if you guys want to provide back additional overall findings, and we can bring this back at the next meeting to better clarify those. For instance, one of mine would overall findings would be that, for instance, some of the policy items really could be action items, and that could be streamlined. So if you guys have some like overall findings and feedback that you want to, after going through this process, that you saw something that was just really apparent, that was like, this could be done better, please give me that feedback over this next month, and then we can incorporate that into this memo and present a final memo back, unless you guys have anything now you want to discuss. And that was a lot. So and kind of 2 different pieces. I'll send it back to the chair and let me know how you want to proceed.
So I'd like to get feedback from the commission on doing an update of the plan. And I guess partly in the context of some of the issues that we have come across with rezoning where we have this divergence between the plan and our zoning code. So if anybody has any comments, I'd appreciate your advice.
While they wait to get started.
This is Commissioner Ryan. It seems like a pretty big task to take on. I don't know if it's like using the existing plan and just having an addendum to it, kind of like it's not really rewriting a whole new plan. Is that kind of the scope of this task?
I'd like to recognize the city manager.
Through the chair. Yes, thank you. It really is more just a check with the public on where our goals and our implementation items are and making sure that we're still in line with the public's desires and updating it and making it more streamlined. So a lot of the meat of the plan will stay the same. You know, we might update some of the demographics and things just internally as we go through this process because it's been 10 years. But I think the focus of the update really is making sure that we're still aligned with the public's desires for goals and implementation. And if we can make that a little bit more user friendly.
Yeah, so it's an update, not a complete rewrite, is what I think at the high level.
Correct.
Commissioner Forsberg?
And then they'll have the information to see what's in it and all that. The public.
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, as many times as we can and as many different formats as we can, because that'll help guide it. Hopefully, a lot of the work is done through the public and then brought back to the commission.
And then I guess, so there's an opportunity to use the Alaska Municipal League. So there's some level of support that is to be determined, but at least there's a level of support that could assist in getting this done so that it's no one sort of person or entity is burdened with all of this, that it's something that kind of figuring out what's the best way to do this so that we use our resources wisely, and actually, if there are things that need to be fixed, that they're fixed, and that helps us move forward with consistency across the plan and our zoning code. Commissioner Kroll, do you have any feedback? No? Okay. And then staff, is there any other feedback that you have?
Just if this is the desire of the planning commission, we'll bring back more information at the next meeting after we speak with Alaska Municipal League and kind of get the ball rolling and see where we end up.
So at this point, would it be best to get the information back from the municipal league and see what the sort of proposed, like a rough proposed plan of how we might be able to do that using Seldovia resources and AML resources, and that way the commission kind of knows what that might look like for them. Okay.
Sure, we could do that.
All right. So why don't we do that? And then we can make a good decision once we have all the information.
And then if so I'll if you guys want to take the opportunity to look over this findings overall and then provide if there's any high level feedback regarding the plan that we can include in this memo, that would be helpful as well for the next meeting.
Okay, so what I'm just to clarify, is there a date by which you would like that feedback so that because you would want to incorporate that into the information packet for the next meeting? Is that correct or no?
Right, correct. So I guess if we look at a calendar, the next meeting is February 5th. So if we had everything received by January 29th, that would be helpful.
And what you're looking for is any high level feedback based on the commissioner's review of the compilation of the data on the audit of the comprehensive plan.
Yeah. Yeah. So I took the opportunity to, while you guys were going through the review, to also go through the plan. And there were some things that seemed obvious to me, but it'd be nice to have feedback if there are other obvious things to other people. And I can write up that list of the things that I saw to include if that's helpful. Like I mentioned, some of the policies and contingency recommendations could be action items, and that whole process could be streamlined a little bit better. Another one I noticed is on economy on page 25, discusses desired future concepts, but then it's not really related back into implementation or goals. So just anything like that that's should be looked at moving forward on how to make the plan work.
Okay, so and then if you could just send a memo out to the
Yes.
via email to the commissioners asking for that input and the date by which you want it. That way, that'll just serve as a reminder.
Can do. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on to staff reports. I guess the upcoming open commission business, are these just items that we're just listing as these are just open items we're carrying? What we're trying to do is make sure that we're keeping tabs on the things that we've identified as things that we need to complete, and this is just an open list for that. So those are the items that are still to be dispositioned. The next one is information items not requiring action. So there will be by the commission, the action memorandums for reappointment of Commissioner Ryan and Commissioner Kroll will be presented to the Seldovia City Council at their January 13th, 2025 regular meeting.
Actually, Chair Sweet, if I may, that's been pushed back to the January 27th meeting
Okay.
at this point in time.
And then there's a notice of vacancy, and has the notice of vacancy been posted?
It's been posted and it's online. I'm gonna post it up again here soon. I hope to have another copy of the newsletter out and have that included within it shortly as well.
Okay. And then the Seldovia City Office will be closed January 20th, 2025 in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And then any comments from the public? Any comments from the commission? Commissioner Ryan, do you have any comments?
Yes, I'm thinking I won't be able to make the next meeting. So hopefully you'll still have a quorum. February 5th, I'm flying.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Any other comments from the commissioners?
A lot of work ahead.
And then our next regular meeting will be on February 5th. And then last item is, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner Forsberg. And can I have a motion second to?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Kroll. And we are adjourned.
No objection, we're adjourned.
Thank you so much.